Hi, everyone.
Hi, guys.
How are you doing? Hey, Jen, how you doing?
Excellent. Everyone, welcome to TheShow.live. I see hey, Nick, our audience is trickling in here. Of course, this is the weekly conversation with my co-host Mitch, Jackson, and I, where we bring on guests and we talk to people who are disrupting industries and influencing change, particularly through digital media. So live streaming, social. We've heard from podcasters now, and today is no different. We have one of our friends, a mutual friend of both mine and Mitch's, Chris Strub, is going to be on the show. Jay Garrett, hey, welcome to the show. So glad to see everyone here. And we have a couple today we'll go ahead and shout out because Mitch happens to be wearing one.
Well, I do. And the first thing I'd like to do is we have a new sponsor this week, experts.com. Right here, Nick Rishwain, the vice president of experts.com, is in the audience. And, experts.com does so many good things. I'm going to work out right after the show. That's why this is on. But experts.com is where attorneys go, where business and insurance leaders go to find the best expert witnesses and consultants. When I'm getting ready for a trial and I need a good expert witness, I'll reach out to experts.com and they'll take care of me and make sure that my clients have a successful day in court. So thank you, experts.com, for supporting the show.live.
Absolutely. And we also have a second new sponsor this week, PS PDF Kit's new app, PDF Viewer. And I'm going to put the link in here. As you guys know, I am the marketing director. Nick is very happy with his shout out right there. I am the marketing director for PS PDF Kit, and we released an app a few weeks ago called PDF Viewer that allows you to download PDFs straight to your phone. So if it's from your email or maybe you just need to see them on the go, and you can utilize those PDFs, make annotations to them, read them, review them, whatever you need to do, send them back to where they need to go, all in one app. So we're currently accepting beta testers. You can check out that link there. It's both for iOS and Android. So thank you, PDF Viewer, of course, for sponsoring me and my time here on the show.live. Mitch, how have you been? I feel like we haven't talked in a week.
I know. We need to chat more often. We don't have to just wait until Monday afternoons your time. But, it's funny how PDF has changed our world. We used to send hundreds of pages of jury instructions, and now it's a simple PDF. Love the technology. Everything's going great right now. It's going to be a busy week. We've got a lot of exciting things coming up. One of the exciting things coming up, Jen, that our audience should know about is we will eventually be changing our showtime and date on the show.live to Wednesdays. Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Is that correct?
We are, yes.
So we have a few shows that are still set for Mondays that are already scheduled that are coming up. We got Sonny Lenarduzzi, we've got Joel Comm and Gary Vaynerchuk. Those are our last 3 Monday afternoon shows. And then after Gary, we're going to be rotating over to Wednesday to accommodate everybody's schedule. So we've got good things coming up. We're always listening to the feedback from our audience. We love having you guys here. And do us a favor, before we introduce and bring Chris in, share this out on Twitter, share this out on Facebook, use the buttons if you would, copy the link and share it out. If you're watching this recorded, do the same thing. It's even better recorded than it is live. Right?
Absolutely. It's always great. And it's well, too, we do want to make this show valuable for you, which is why we're changing the time to make sure that not only can you join us every week, but we can bring some more people in to continue this conversation. We also want to hear who you'd like to see on the show.live. So if you have any ideas, for those of you, probably Twitter would be the best way to reach out to Mitch or myself. Just let us know, like, hey, either I have a connection with this person or I'd really like you to try to get this person on your show to see what they have going on. We will do whatever we can to make that happen, but certainly a great lineup of guests coming up.
Jen, I saw a picture you posted, I think it was on Facebook or Snapchat, a very interesting mug of beer. You were doing something a little bit different. What was going on this weekend?
So yesterday, my girlfriends and I, we were supposed to go to the movies. And I guess now, you guys, I haven't been to a movie theater in like at least 3 years. And so the thing now is like recliners in movie theater seats. And so they require like a reservation. And unfortunately, since we were not up to date on this new trend, we like showed up at 2:00, you know, so we could kind of miss the previews, get straight to the movie. And of course, it was sold out and there were no more of these seats available. So we went across the street to a local brewery. We had already had brunch and everything. And we decided to grab some desserts. And what you see on my Instagram, for those of you that aren't following me, I'm Jen Hoverstad on Instagram, was a giant root beer float. They make their own root beer at this brewery. And they added like half a container of ice cream. So it's kind of like the best of everything in one giant glass mug. So yes, that is what I was doing yesterday afternoon, working on that root beer float.
That's exactly right. You know, we've got those theaters. We've got those theaters popping up all over Southern California. It's a great way to see a movie. I mean, it's really awesome.
Well, now I know to plan ahead of time. So that sounds like that's the key there. What about you, Mitch? What'd you do this weekend?
No, I did fly the drone, threw it up a couple of times. I'm noticing Gary's giving me a hard time. Go fly a drone. Absolutely, you guys, you know, get out there. I'm going to do the show.live sometime from the air. We had our Rotary Lobster Fest Saturday night. So it's one of our big Rotary fundraisers down on the sand in Dana Point, California. And this year we had 700 guests join us. It was very successful, very big fundraiser. Yours truly, along with my son Garrett and 5 or 6 interactors and a couple of other Rotarians, we were in charge of cracking all the lobsters. So the lobster coming off right out of the steamer, and we just worked our butts off. I mean, it was hard work. And that was a big success Saturday. And then came home and found out that David Merriman Scott, who was speaking at a big Tony Robbins event in Las Vegas, before 1,400 people. It was a business mastery Tony Robbins session. Was nice enough to give my law firm a shout out for some of the media things that we're doing, especially with respect to newsjacking. And what's really cool is David starting to use Facebook Live. And he reached out to me on Sunday and said, that was so cool because his Facebook Live, as of Sunday morning, within 12 hours, reached 44,000 views. It was huge.
Wow.
And he gets it. He's like, this is a game changer. And so, you know, when we talk about live streaming, when we talk about people embracing new technology, whatever that might be, it's fun to watch people who are already very, very successful, doing amazing things, and understanding and appreciating the power of live streaming to carry their message to the next level. So it was a fun weekend. And you know what's really fun is I was thinking about having Chris on the show. I was thinking about it all weekend. This guy's doing amazing things. If you don't mind, what I'd like to do is, why don't we invite Chris in? Let's invite him to the broadcast. And while you're doing that, Jennifer, let me give him a short introduction. How's that sound?
All right, I'll invite you now, Chris.
Okay, so while Chris is coming in, everyone, assuming he's got his audio and video working, we have Chris Strub as our guest today. Chris is a nonprofit volunteer. He also happens to be the first person on this planet who we know of who has live streamed in all 50 states, and I believe he did that within 100 days. So he's always spending his time with nonprofit and charitable organizations. If you follow Chris on Facebook and on Twitter, you'll see some really cool pictures, some really cool videos. And now what Chris is doing is he's teamed up with Humana to help them change the world by improving health. And then he's bringing the social media component and his expertise to the Humana Business Project. So it's all good. Are we able to bring him in?
You know, I have clicked invite to broadcast a few times, and I'm not sure. Oh, wait, here we go.
There we go.
There he is.
Hello. Oh, are we here?
We are here.
Yeah.
Good, Chris. Good to see you, buddy.
Great to see you guys. I'm still trying to get it. Okay, looks like we're good now.
Don't touch anything. It's working. You sound good. You look good. And I know what's between your ears is excellent. So this is going to be a great show.
So glad to be here, guys. I've been looking forward to this for months. This is really exciting. So,
well, Chris, we are really excited to have you. And I see here, obviously, some of your biggest fans have joined us today as well. So you guys, as we get started talking with Chris, please share this out on Twitter, on Facebook. Let people know that Chris is now in the hot seat and they can come in and ask questions. So Chris, I mean, quite the intro from Mitch there. Obviously, you have accomplished a lot really in a short period of time with live streaming. I mean, this is all fairly new in the grand scheme of technology. Give us kind of a, you know, background. You're a young guy. Where did this idea come from? Like, hey, I'm going to go set out and accomplish this, you know, big ordeal where I'm going to live stream and Snapchat from all 50 states.
Yeah, and first of all, Jen and Mitch, thank you so much again for having me today. This is really, really exciting. I grew up in the journalism industry. I graduated from Binghamton University, upstate New York, and took a job at a newspaper, and really have had sort of a front row seat in the evolution of journalism, throughout the 2000s and now into the 2010s. Live streaming is really just, to me, the next evolution of storytelling and of journalism. And so for me to head out and seize the opportunity to travel around the country was a representation of that, wanting to tell stories, but also to create a story that has never been told before, to go out and do something different. We all hear so many messages about be different and stand out from the crowd. Well, this was my way of doing that. And to do so in a way that was able to benefit so many people around the country really allowed me to share that gift and share that memory and experience with many, many people.
And you did that in a book that you wrote. Now, you wrote this book, was it during your adventure of live streaming in each of the 50 states, or was this something you did afterwards? And tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so the book is called 50 States, 100 Days, the book. I actually wrote the book after the trip was over. During the trip itself, there was quite a bit of work to be done because I was doing all the video editing and then, of course, the driving and everything on my own. So really tried to collect the stories and share them as much as I could interactively throughout the summer. I moved to upstate New York last fall and spent a couple months writing a book. And it's not the best book that's ever written. If I were to do it again, I might do it a little differently. But so many of us, Mitch, get old and think, oh man, the one thing I really want to do is write a book. Not you.
That's all right.
So many of us.
Thank you for joining us today on Huzzah.io.
No, but so many people look back and say, oh, I wish I had written a book. I wish I had had a chance to share my story. And one day I just decided to sit down and do it. And it's pretty incredible to say here at age 30 until tomorrow. I've got this book under my belt, and who knows what comes next.
Oh, it's fantastic. I'm glad you did it. I mean, it's something that a lot of people think about, but you executed. You did something that's never been done before. And that's something that I think you're walking your talk, you're leading by example, especially when it comes to nonprofits, charitable work, and embracing live streaming technology. And then you did something else. You added a book to the equation. And that's pretty impressive, Chris. So nice job.
Yeah, and the book is really, for anyone who's read it, first of all, thank you. The book really tells the stories of all of the nonprofit organizations that I worked with last summer. And that was the true magic of the story last year, was being able to make so many connections. And we'll talk about that throughout the show today, I'm sure, as well, how powerful it is to make these meaningful connections through live video. I took it to the next level and was able to introduce live video to many of these organizations in person. And I've really been able to continue to do that through the incredible opportunity I have here in Louisville with Humana.
And so let's bring people up to speed on what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of get into the nooks and crannies of your work there. But, I know you left your job. You were working at a newspaper in upstate New York and just decided like, hey, this is not what I want to do anymore. I don't have a passion for it. And kind of like just took a chance on hoping something would come along. So tell us about like the past 6 months of your life. I'm sure it's been a whirlwind.
Yeah, so the trip ended last year, 1 year ago today, which is exciting. And there were a lot of opportunities that I pursued, a lot of different ways that I could have gone with my career. And I was so grateful to have met a gentleman named Dan Gingiss. He does the Focus on Customer Service podcast with his friend Dan Moriarty. Dan is the head of digital marketing at Humana here in Louisville. And, Humana does this initiative called the Bold Goal, where they're looking to improve community health by 20% by the year 2020. And they do that through partnerships with organizations in communities like Louisville, San Antonio, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Knoxville. And my job now here with Humana is to head out into the field, much like I did last summer, and work directly and offer social media consultative work and video creation with these organizations on a one-on-one basis. So really spending that time sitting in the boardroom and getting a chance to meet those change makers and being able to offer that direct one-on-one advice, which so many of us here in the online world crave, is that opportunity to have your questions answered, much like we're going to answer all the audience's questions today. But being able to have those individual conversations with these organizations really allows them to feel empowered and inspired and engaged to want to take the leap and jump into live streaming video, much like many of us here on Huzzah have done.
And look, Chris, you are a change maker by doing what you're doing. I'm looking over in the comments. Nick Rishwain, who experts.com is a sponsor of the show today, he just mentioned that getting to know you has actually made him contribute to at least one of the nonprofits that you cover. So what you're doing is affecting everyone, including people watching this show. Tell us about a couple of your either most unique or memorable experiences on your journey across 50 states, helping the nonprofits. Anything come to mind that maybe we haven't read about in your book or we haven't talked about on live streaming today?
Yeah, Mitch, I know so much of this show is about how we're using live streaming to make a change. And so I wanted to talk briefly about my time with the Gay Straight Alliance in Hawaii. I've actually got my little lei here behind me. That's why it's weird. It looks like it's coming out of my head. But, I met the director of the GSA. His name is Kalana Chang. And we were able to meet right after the big announcement last summer of, gay marriage becoming legal across the country. But it came at a very interesting time for Kalana because his organization was out of funding. And so it was a very passionate time. Everyone was very excited about LGBT issues. But for Kalana, it was a very mixed bag. And so I said, dude, I'm tuned in with this app called Meerkat, and we have this opportunity to share your story with the world and get your message out there. And obviously getting a chance to speak to him, get to learn about what he did was incredible. But after a brief explanation, we hooked up to the Wi-Fi, set my phone up on the table in front of us, and we actually did a Meerkat live stream sort of fundraiser for over an hour, where we had people tuning in and commenting, and it was incredible for him to say, I have the opportunity to speak with people from around the world and share my story. And, we didn't raise tens of thousands of dollars, but so much of what we're doing, in the live streaming world these days is opening eyes and raising awareness and really encouraging people to think differently about the way that they use these technologies. And for this young man, Kalana, the nicest man in the world, to get a chance to sit there and tell his story, with the added attention of everyone who was following my trip and everything, was such a special memory for me. And it was such an incredible experience. The app itself might be dead, just like I remember watching so many episodes of TheShow.live on Blab. But that experience, that moment of being able to use live video to get an important message across to people who really cared was really something special.
Mm.
That's awesome. And I think you bringing up the LGBTQ community as well, just a quick shout out to Huzzah. Chris, you may not know this yet, since I know you're probably fairly new to this platform, but one of the reasons Huzzah has taken the steps that they have taken to make sure, you have to sign in a certain way, you have to be invited to shows, all of these different steps, is to prevent trolling. And I know one of the things that we heard, the three of us heard at Live Streaming Summit last year, was that both the female community as well as the LGBTQ community found that trolls are prevalent and overwhelming, or can be, on live streaming platforms. And so just a quick shout out to Huzzah, since you mentioned that example, that so far we have not experienced trolling on TheShow.live since being on this platform. So that may be another good tool for you, Chris, to take with you to these nonprofits that are especially dealing with very sensitive topics and communities.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so many of these organizations, when you get a chance to speak to them, their biggest concern is that sort of trolling atmosphere and the negativity that may come, with putting your message out there in a live and bold sort of fashion like this. But, you two are the most shining examples of ways that the community has come together to support, especially people who have gone out of their way to create something special on an ongoing basis, like you guys have with the show. Mm-hmm. So, I know I've said this before, but it's a true honor to be here with you guys. And, I really appreciate not just both of you, but the entire TheShow.live community spending some time this afternoon or watching this on replay to hear the messages that I've got to share today.
You're amazing. I love it. That's just so nice of you to say, Chris. I've got a good friend of mine who I originally met in Rotary, but he's an executive director of the Boys and Girls Club down in San Juan Capistrano, James Littlejohn. And one of his students was in the Oval Office a couple of years ago representing the Boys and Girls Club in a contest they have. He made it all the way up and met the president. And James is a special type of person. It takes a certain type of person to get involved with community service, nonprofit, business needs and things like that. What got you interested in nonprofits? What got you interested in community service, Chris? And how has that controlled the decisions that you're making in your life?
Mitch, one of my good friends, his name is Lee Karshauer, created a charity several years ago called Pay Away the Layaway. And during the holiday season, that organization pays off layaway plans for families in low-income areas around the country. Now, when I lived down in South Carolina, I had the opportunity to head up to a Walmart in Greer, a neighboring community, and actually represent the thousands of donors that make it possible for a select number of layaway angels to pay off layaway plans for these families. And the emotion that I felt, the moment that you see a grandparent or a parent have the holiday season literally saved by these donors, and to be able to get a hug and just see someone crying, just tears of joy. That day changed my life, Mitch. That experience absolutely changed my life. And I said, you know what? I love to travel. I love social media. But more so than that, I want to replicate that feeling and that emotion of making a positive difference and being able to help kids as much as I possibly could. And so that's sort of part of where the idea for the trip was born from, was that one singular day. I'm very, very happy to speak about Pay Away the Layaway, which you can read more about at payawaythelayaway.org. They're continuing to do some incredible work. The amount of difference that they're making year after year just continues to skyrocket. They've been featured on the Today Show, Good Morning America. And Mitch, I can't tell you, man, and I know both of you guys are very much family oriented. That opportunity to make a positive difference in the life of a child, there is absolutely nothing like it. And so to be able to have done that at Boys and Girls Clubs and other organizations around the U.S. last summer, man, it was absolutely incredible.
I was curious as to what got you interested, because all of us that are involved in service, there's always a story there. And thanks for sharing your story. Now, I hear a noise at my end. Is that with you, Jen? Or
I hear it too. Sounds kind of like a vacuum.
There might be some construction going on in an adjacent apartment here.
We're done. Okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Sorry about that.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't at my end. So, you know what? I've got a question I want to ask you, but I want to hand the microphone back over to Jennifer.
Yeah, I wanted, since we're still kind of in this topic here, I wanted to go ahead and bring in Jay's question. He wants to know, since today is the anniversary of when you got back from your trip, how have you seen live streaming change people's lives? And are those impacts different this year versus last year when you started? So comparing this year to last year.
Yeah, I think live streaming has had an enormous impact on many of us here in the quote unquote the live streaming community. We all very fondly remember the time that we spent together on Blab, getting to know one another. And I started to make a list in preparation for the show of all of the people that I met, through live streaming, and there's no end to it. And so for me, Jay, when I think of that, I think of the ways that if we're able to introduce more of these incredible stories to the live streaming arena. And I see Sarah McDowell is here watching. She's the executive director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of South Central West Virginia.
Really?
And she's, that was state number 48 that I visited. I actually got a chance to interview Sarah. And one more thing, Sarah and her board of directors actually sponsored my journey to Summit Live in January. So I was able to continue that connection and really speak to a lot of influencers at the conference about her organization. But Jay, what I really have realized is that these connections that I make are so powerful and so influential in my world that I really just want to take as many of these people that I'm meeting and bring them in and allow them to get to know the Mitch Jacksons, the Jen Hoverstads, the Nick Rishwains, and all of these wonderful people who want to help. There's such a land of opportunity here for all of these organizations to be able to share their stories. And, my story is one thing to have traveled around, but, like I mentioned with the book, the stories of these people who you meet who have spent decades and decades dedicating their lives to improving the chances of these kids to really get up off the ground and have, live their dreams and do what they want to do. Their stories, I hope that we can create series and create audiences for these organizations to be able to share their stories on an ongoing basis. Because when you get out there in the field and you hear, much like Mitch, knows his friend and everything, when you hear these stories, all you want to do is be able to share them. And I could sit here for days, Jen, and just tell story after story of the individuals that I met last summer. And my hope is that they'll recognize the power of these platforms and the opportunity to connect with their audiences the same way we have.
Chris, we have last week's guest joining us, Dr. Michelle Drouin, who's a well-known expert when it comes to engaging at the human level on social media. And I'd like to make sure that you reach out to Michelle and get to know her, because I think there's a connection there. But along those same lines, and let me ask you a follow-up question that Nick Rishwain asked, and that is, Chris, have you received feedback from nonprofits that they have received donations as a result of your efforts, because of live streaming, because of your involvement, whether it's financial donations or more additional exposure? What has been your experience, and any takeaways that our business owners that are watching can use to help build their brands and increase profits for their companies?
So, Nick, to answer your question directly, yes, I have seen monetary donations. I've seen volunteer donations. And I've seen certainly an enormous amount of raised awareness and sharing of organizational messages. The best example is Youth on Their Own in Tucson, Arizona. Some of you guys might remember, I did a project called Tucson. Did a project called. Oh, gotta love it, Mitch. Did a project called Shrubs Snaps, in which, of course, Jen was a part, and many of others in the social media community. But as part of that, I included some voices from the nonprofits themselves. And Kristen Connor, who is, herself was a homeless teenager in Tucson, now is a development director for Youth on Their Own. And she came on in the beginning of Shrubs Snaps and did a magnificent job using Snapchat to tell her story of what their organization is about and how it has directly impacted her. And when you get a chance to see the emotion in someone's eyes and how you've had that impact on a direct individual, it does inspire monetary donations. It does inspire people that emailed me and said, wow, Chris, I had never heard of this organization. I live in Tucson, and now I actually go out and volunteer with them. And so we haven't seen it on an enormous level. You know what I mean? We haven't seen some of the parent organizations. A lot of what I push for and what I tweet about and what I lobby for is for the Boys and Girls Club of America and the YMCA on a national level, and Big Brothers Big Sisters to consider adopting this on a national level. But we have definitely seen it on that granular level, where these individual organizations like Sarah in South Central West Virginia are using Periscope. They were using Blab. They're using Snapchat. They're changing the way that they're communicating their ideas and their messages. And that is definitely directly inspiring action all across the country.
Love it.
So you mentioned Shrubs Snap Swaps, and which again I thought was another brilliant idea that you came up with. But I think a lot of people would maybe have been nervous to be like, one, I don't necessarily want to hand over my Snapchat account to strangers, and two, like I don't necessarily want to maybe reach out to some of these people and see if they'll do it. That might sound silly. Like, talk us through how you came up with this idea, and really what did you accomplish at the end of it? Because I think some people would have maybe like just nixed it off in the idea planning of it, because it was such a big idea. And I mean, from my point of view, it was very successful, but you actually had to follow through with everything. So just walk us through that.
Yeah, Jen, it's kind of representative of who I am as an individual, that when I see something that works, I want to take it and multiply it times 50. So like I mentioned with Pay Away the Layaway, to go out and volunteer after that would have been great, but to go out and volunteer around the country introduce that real sense of magnitude and enormity. And so Shrubs Snaps was an idea lifted from some of my friends, Jason Yarborough, Vincenzo Landino, that these guys really pioneered the way for swapping their Snapchat accounts to be able to grow their audience in an interactive and fun way. Mm-hmm. And we were able to do that 50 days in a row and really multiply that audience and really create that ball and get it rolling by doing some really strong planning, to be honest with you. I mean, it took a couple months to figure out a strategy and figure out the days that we were going to do it in a row. But you know, Jen, when you're authentic about who you are and what you're about, and I really had nothing to hide on my Snapchat account, so allowing people to log in and spend some time, you know, doing their thing and vice versa, I thought was a really great, transparent way to share our stories and really, much like you guys have with TheShow.live, create a stage for others to be able to tell their story and share what they're about. That's really what it was about, Jen, was that, you know, so many people didn't know who so many of these people were as we were going along. But by creating that stage, we were able to, you know, build an audience for everyone who was able to take part. And yes, Mitch, I'm sorry, now the fire alarm is going off in my building. It should be off momentarily.
We can barely, you know what, you're so hot, Chris, the fire alarm should go off. All the good things that you're doing, don't worry about it. We're not going to let that distract from the value of this show. And let's talk about that just a little bit. All the different techniques that you've either used or you've seen other people use to help get the word out about their nonprofits. What's been the most effective technique to amplify the needs of a nonprofit that you've seen put into place?
Yeah, Mitch, you know, I'll say this off the bat that I don't think that there's one correct answer for every organization. And that's sort of the nature of my job, getting a chance to go in and have individual consultations. It's nice to have so many different tools in the bag and say, okay, this will work for you, this might work for you, etc. Now, that said, I think the biggest point that I make with almost every organization I work with is consistency. That pressing the button and being able to share a story at a given moment is a great opportunity, and it's really nice to be able to do that every once in a while. But like we see here with TheShow.live and with so many of these other series, you know, Daily V and all of these things, the reason that they work is the dedication to do so either day after day or week after week. Or, you know, I say this over and over, consistency doesn't necessarily mean frequently. The consistency can even be from month to month or quarter to quarter. But when you identify what your story is and then say, okay, we're going to create a series out of this and talk about the volunteer of the month, or talk about the staff member of the week, or talk about the kid of the week, you're able to create a series that people can say, oh, I want to be part of this, or oh, I want to look back at the previous iterations of it, just like Shrubs Snaps, just like now I'm in state 38, but you can go back and look at the previous 37 states. When you introduce that pattern of behavior and you're able to show over a period of time that this is what you're about and this is what you're doing, you're really able to gain the trust of people. And that, Nick Rishwain, is when you start to see people say, you know what, this is an organization that I want to go out and volunteer with. This is an organization that I want to go out and make a donation to. So sometimes it's tough when you're just at an organization for a matter of minutes to tell their story. But the whole idea behind all of these individual visits that I do is to say, here are the tools, here are the keys. This is how you can make this work. Now, who's going to take the ball and run with it? And it's so wonderful to see individuals like Sarah McDowell and Kristen Connor and Youth Rebuilding New Orleans. Those guys are doing a wonderful, wonderful job with Snapchat. They're the ones who are going to start to see the real dividends as they continue to produce these videos and continue to communicate with their audience on an ongoing basis.
So based on these consultations, what are some of the maybe pushback, or I guess for lack of a better word, excuses that you're hearing for why nonprofits aren't jumping into some of these platforms?
You know, Jen, it's never really so much excuses. I think the two big things, the biggest barrier, of course, is awareness. and not everyone knows what Huzzah is, much less knows how to make a Facebook Live. So we can break down that barrier in one visit. I get a chance to go out and explain this, and I can't tell you how cool it is, Jen, when you see the gears turning and these organizations and very, very smart marketing professionals who've been doing this for decades say, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of having our live speaker come on a Facebook Q&A after their keynote speech to answer questions from the audience. I never thought of repurposing this video in a live fashion so we can actually hear feedback from our audience. And so the opportunity that I have here with Humana is very thought-provoking on a pretty frequent basis. Now, once you break down that barrier, the second thing is going to be resources. And so that's why it's so important to have these individual discussions to say, you don't need to live stream every day. You don't even need to live stream every week, but it's something that you want to do. And if you can dedicate yourself to doing it on a consistent basis, and again, I have a lot of discussions where organizations could do it every day, and I have some that could do it once a quarter. But it's those who recognize the value in it and who aren't scared when they go live for the first time and see, oh, what do you mean 2 people watched or 3 people watched? The next time you go live, maybe it'll be 4 people or 7 people. And the other important lesson to remember, Jen, is that maybe those 5 people that are watching are the board of directors from an organization that's considering making a $25,000 grant to your nonprofit coming up. That it's never about the magnitude and it's never about the total audience. So often it's about who's watching and not how many are watching.
That's so true. It only takes one person watching to make a big difference. And speaking of making a big difference, your mom's on the show. She's watching. She just joined us. And if I was to bring her on, Chris, and ask your mom, tell us a story about Chris Strubs that we don't know. Okay, what would your mom tell us? What would be her favorite story about you growing up? Maybe this led you to where you are today.
I think I did this on another show. It might have been with Ross Brand that my mom and dad and my sister actually were all in the comments having this same exact conversation. Mitch, I got to be honest with you, and I'm going to open up with you guys a little bit if that's okay. That so many of these mentoring organizations that I've had a chance to work with, Big Brothers, Big Sisters in general, or specifically, they resonate very closely with me because growing up, my parents were divorced and my dad wasn't around for a number of years. And so when I get a chance to go in and speak with the director or the VP of communications or whoever's representing an organization that is directly connecting kids with individuals who want to volunteer, that's not just lip service and it's not just something that I do for the heck of it. It's something that really has a deep meaning to me because I know that the work that I'm doing can help bring together people that are going to make the next generation stronger and healthier. The YMCA is another one where I enjoy working with the YMCA, and I had a chance to do it last week in San Antonio, and boy, they are doing a fantastic job on Facebook Live, by the way, the YMCA of San Antonio. But I grew up going to the YMCA, and so when you have those experiences resonate from your childhood and they come up into what you're doing in your day-to-day life, this is very, very meaningful, impactful work for me. And to say that I have a chance to live this dream and to really directly impact and affect the way that organizations are doing business on a day-to-day basis, man, it's really powerful, and it really it means so much to me. It really, really does. And it's such a pleasure to be able to spend a few minutes today getting a chance to express that sentiment with you guys.
Well, and it means a lot to our audience members, too. We have Sue Sheff, who's one of the nation's premier online harassment and bullying experts, mentioning that it's the personal connection. She loves it. Chris, that's just so good and powerful for everybody to hear. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you, Sue, for your comments.
Yeah, we've got some terrific conversation going on in the comments. So I just want to say thank you to all of you guys, especially Mom, who have taken the time today to tune in. It really does mean a lot.
Absolutely. So I want to go over to our questions. Chef Michael asked a question, and he is asking about the quality of the ones interacting online giving grounds to being a social influencer. Do you feel that being a quality social engager inhibits or contributes to a quality following and meaningful direction for future interests? So kind of a loaded question there, Michael, but Chris, which direction do you want to take that? Just being a social engager, maybe not being on the face of everything, but really engaging.
I think I understand the question. And I think we would all reiterate the idea of engagement being the key to actual influence. So much of what we all do on a day-to-day basis is converse, reply to tweets. I answer tons of Snapchats every day. Being able to obviously read the questions in the comments on an interactive forum like this is totally vital to being able to have actual influence, because you're demonstrating that you're paying attention to what's taking place in front of you, and not just here to speak and converse, or not converse, but to tell stories. We all want to hear what is going on in the world around us, and I think that therein lies the big opportunity for organizations to be able to understand and recognize some of the pain points in their own marketing messaging, or the pain points in the actual community, to say, what is it that you want more of? What can we be doing better? What should we be focusing more of our time and attention on? That's so much of what live streaming really is about, is that two-way dialogue. And, Mitch, that's so much of what I see is so great about a platform like this versus a platform like Periscope or even Facebook, that we're able to have these conversations, just like Blab, where you're able to press that button and bring someone in. That it's a totally different atmosphere than, hey, listen to my masterclass for an hour, or hey, here's 8 tips and tricks. No, here's my ideas, but how do these ideas impact you as an individual watching in the audience?
And, by doing that, Chris, when answering that question, it also requires all of us to put ourselves out there. We're using platforms that have never been used before. You mentioned Meerkat at the top of the show, and we're now on Huzza, which is our platform of choice. But we have Dr. Druins leaving the conversation. She has to run, but she talks about people being harassed online when it comes to sexting, when it comes to things like that. We've got Sue Chef, who's an expert when it comes to harassment and bullying, and Sue and I have met offline before we even met online. Can you give some advice to some of our viewers on why it's okay to put yourself out there when controversy arises, the best way to deal with it, and why it's important to keep moving forward with your message? Okay, because a lot of people get intimidated and they just drop out of sight, and we never hear from them again, and other people just keep moving forward with their positive message. Can you give us?
Yeah, Mitch, I think the most important thing to remember is, if you're genuine in your heart and you're authentic in what you're doing, that you need to believe in what you do and be able to continue and press forward. So you can't let anyone detract you from your message, and in order for your message to resonate, you need to truly believe in it. This is a Gary Vee-ism, right? No one's going to believe in what you do more than yourself. So if you believe in yourself and you're willing to continue to put yourself out there, and you're willing to drive through with your message, it's going to continue to resonate. And Jen mentioned some of the idea of my career perseverance, that there's a lot of ways that my career could have gone a little bit differently, that could have given up on this whole live video experiment altogether. But I believe in the power of sharing your message. I believe in the power of inspiring organizations to share their message. And there's no amount of negative commentary or anything that could ever detract me from going out there and inspiring people to take on these new tools and do what they can to share their message. And it's never about the negativity. It's always about the positivity and those that surround you. So it's incredibly special to know that there are so many great people in this live streaming community that are so supportive, and I think it's important that we continue to keep the focus on them, just like you guys do with the show on a weekly basis.
Well said.
That's great. I do want to bring Nick in. Nick said he has a question that he would like to come in and ask. And of course, for those of you that have not joined us before, Nick Rishwain is one of our sponsors from experts.com today. So Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks. Hi, Mitch. Hi, Chris. Good to see you.
Hey, Nick, good to see you.
Good to see y'all. Chris, I wanted to know what is the number one platform for a nonprofit? I think did we ask this already, Jen, and I missed it?
It hasn't been asked. It was in the questions, but it hasn't been asked yet.
Okay, great. Yeah, for a nonprofit trying to spread their message, do you think there's a number one platform for that?
Yes, I do. And Nick, it's wonderful to see you. Nick is one of the good guys out there. Nick, when I go in and I work with these organizations, I focus primarily on Facebook Live.
Okay.
That's not to say that there aren't other channels and other times that I say, oh, you should try Periscope or try some of these other platforms. But because so many of these community organizations have invested so much time and energy in building their audience on Facebook, and I think the other big news, and Mitch, this is funny, when I scheduled this interview several months ago, I had my fingers crossed and I said, we might be the first TheShow.live to do this on Facebook if they introduce that co-streaming. Right. And just this past weekend came the news that they were starting to roll it out today. So we're not quite at quadcasting yet, but I do think, and it's nothing against Huzzah or Fire Talk or any of these other platforms, nothing at all. I love them all. But I do think that when Facebook pulls the lever and allows you to collaborate and have conversations between pages, I think that will allow everyone, probably the show included, to have deeper, meaningful conversations that are able to reach a larger audience just because we're able to host that on a native platform. So I see a lot of positive changes coming in the near future for Facebook Live. I think, hopefully we'll be able to subscribe to streams. Hopefully there'll be better replayability and, more of, being able to see a calendar of streams that might be coming out from your friends. And we could talk all day about the tech side of things, but the long story short is I love encouraging Facebook Live for nonprofits to be able to connect with their audience that they're already nurturing for years and years in the past.
Before you go, Nick, what's interesting is 2 years ago, none of us knew each other. I think that's a true statement. And Nick, you made a comment earlier that because of something that you watched or listened to Chris do, it resulted in you getting involved in that particular nonprofit or that particular charitable cause. Taking a step back as a consumer and seeing Chris for the first time, or people like Chris, what was it? What buttons did he push, and how did he push them that resulted in you taking action and supporting one of his charities? I think that's really important for all of us to know, because we can take those principles, those concepts, and those approaches into everything that we're doing. What was it that affected you and made you take action?
That's a great question, and I guess it's a two-part. If you don't mind my answering, Chris, that I also supported you during the trip, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
Just post the trip. I guess it's too late now, but I saw what Chris was doing, and I'm here in corporate America, and he's just a few years younger than me, and I saw what he's doing, and it got me excited that somebody was out there doing good while I'm here earning a paycheck. So I actually donated to his efforts at that time. Nothing major, small, just very small. I don't have the billions to run with, but and then he went and got Kristen Connor of Youth on Their Own to start telling her story via Snapchat. And her story was so powerful that tugged at my heartstrings and permitted me to donate a little bit more there as well. And so that's what it was. It was somebody was doing something that I'm not out there taking the time to do. So maybe I should contribute a little bit to that so somebody else can continue doing that work.
Was this before or after you met Chris up in San Francisco?
This was before. The first one was before. The second one was after.
Okay. It's just amazing. It's amazing how the synergy and the relationships and the networks just kind of take care of themselves, don't they?
It's amazing. And I was just mentioning in the chat that if this is 1 year since you ended, Chris, your 1 year to the day since you ended, I think we met 1 year ago via Blab, because, and this is funny, Mitch, because it's all changed now, but he actually blabbed while driving at that time, and I
did.
And that's how I met Chris.
Hey, we all did. It's not a big deal. It's what we do today and tomorrow that counts.
That's right. And I think that's how I met Chris, which I'm assuming would have been about 1 year ago today, because he's going into the 50th state.
Fantastic.
Mitch, if I can take 30 seconds to address that.
You're the guest. You can do whatever you want.
Distracted driving has been a lesson that I've learned so much about over the past year, 6 months, especially. And Nick mentioned that he saw me blabbing while driving. If you go back and you look at some of my videos on Facebook, I certainly Snapchatted a heck of a lot while I was driving, and I regret it. Having heard all these stories, so much of what I've heard through the Stop DD movement has made an enormous impact on me. And I have personally contributed, Nick, as well, back to that cause, now that I'm on a payroll and everything, to have heard these stories.
Thank you.
It changes your life. So
this is new.
Mitch, I want to say thank you for pioneering. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah. No, Chris, you're
okay.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Mitch, there you go. That's the point I was trying to make.
What's interesting is this is new for all of us, and I too was live streaming to and from the office back in the day, a year or two ago. Right? I get it, but I didn't realize how dangerous it was until I met a lawyer whose daughter was killed at the age of 21 crossing the street in a crosswalk. She was hit by a distracted driver. And he's led the charge across the country and across the world with raising awareness. So thank you, Chris, for saying that. And, Nick, thanks for being so transparent on this issue. It's just a matter of all of us helping to educate, raise awareness, moving forward, and just keeping the world safe for everyone, right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to call Chris out. I know that he's changed his way since then, but it was
Nick. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did, because someone going back and rewatching some of my stuff might not realize that. But I've definitely tried to be a vocal advocate, for this cause over the last several months, as Mitch would know. So,
thank you guys.
Chris, what can Jennifer and Nick and I expect to see from you over the next couple of months, maybe over the next year? What do you have planned when it comes to social, live streaming, and your nonprofit work, especially with Humana?
So I appreciate that question. With Humana, I'm traveling around now to some of the other markets in which Humana has a big foothold. Again, we call them the bold goal markets. So over the next few months, you can expect to see me live streaming mostly on Facebook from Knoxville and Tampa, Miami and New Orleans, and many of these other cities. And a lot of the work that I'm doing, Mitch, is honestly behind the scenes and using these lessons and answering questions from these organizations and trying to get them to be the voice. If I can, spend a week in a city and inspire a couple of organizations to really take hold and get out there and put themselves out there, that's going to be much more meaningful and much more inspirational for me than it would for me to continue to try and create anything on my own. For me to use my voice to empower others, I think is the most effective way for me to take this skill set and translate it forward. So even if you see less of me on live streaming, I'm spending a lot of that time really trying to teach and encourage and inspire others to join us in this live streaming community and connect with wonderful people like Nick and the people in this room and one another. That I've met, close to 100 nonprofit executives over the last year, and I spend a lot of my time now sending emails from one to another and sort of playing the switchboard game. I even did so this morning, connecting someone from my trip from Lincoln, Nebraska to someone that I met last week in San Antonio because they had an idea that was very similar. So if I can continue to be that Ted Rubin type who's bringing people together and fostering these connections that are going to make the world a stronger place, I feel like I found a pretty good niche.
You're already there. So.
Absolutely, for sure. Well, and I'm hoping to that list of cities you'll add Raleigh. Because
of course.
I believe John Andrews has already said you have a place to stay. So you just need to come, and we'll make sure we bring everybody out to celebrate Chris Strub being in town.
Jen, I've got a soft spot for North Carolina, and I hear there's a couple breweries there that we might have to stop by.
Only a couple, but I'm sure we can figure out a way to get you to see them.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
we're coming up to the top of the hour, Chris, and I think what's going to happen. Well, Nick, thanks for stopping by, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Nick.
Nick of experts.com right here.
A pleasure. Happy to do it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Chris, you've motivated our viewers. I'm sure those watching the recorded version of TheShow.live will also be just as motivated. If people want to reach out and connect with you, if they want to help, whether it's financially, whether it's getting involved, getting their hands dirty, which is my favorite way to help, with nonprofits and charitable services, what's the best way for people to connect with you and take things to the next level?
Yes. Well, first of all, financially, here with my job with Humana, I'm in a much better place financially than I was a few months ago. So if you have the opportunity to give, I would love for you to check out payawaythelayaway.org. It's a wonderful charity that changed my life. And when you get a chance to see more about it and learn more about it, I hope that you'll have that same experience with that organization at some point this fall. If you want to learn more about my trip, you can go to teamstrub.com. You can get the book. It's still only available digitally until I figure out a way to get it printed, like my boy Ted and Caleb Maddox here. I know Caleb is a TheShow.live alum himself.
Yes.
So you can get that book at teamstrub.com. And if you want to follow a lot of the live streams and the separate work that I'm doing with these organizations, you can find me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/teamstrub. And that's where I do most of my work out in the field.
I love it.
That's awesome.
Well, Chris, thanks a lot for all that you do to try to make the world a better place, one state at a time, one organization at a time. It's very much appreciated. I'm glad our paths have crossed. Jennifer was just so excited when we finally landed you to get you on today's show.
True.
I mean, she's really enjoyed what you've been doing. And so we appreciate you taking the time to join us today on TheShow.live. Next week, everyone, we have Sonny Lenarduzzi, who is a video marketing, video branding expert, just a dynamic speaker, a dynamic individual. And she'll be joining us next week on TheShow.live. And all of our upcoming shows can be watched, including past shows at TheShow.live. We encourage everyone to stop by and see what all the excitement is about. Jennifer, any parting words before we leave today?
Well, certainly, Chris, thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for sharing, just your background, and you have a brilliant idea mind, but I think what I love most is just seeing that you actually make your ideas come to life. That's something that's very hard for people to do. So thank you for sharing how you've done that with us. And I just encourage everyone in the chat just to be inspired by what Chris has done, and either to support Chris in his efforts or go out and make your ideas come to life just like Chris has done.
And
thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks, everyone, for stopping by. Sue, appreciate the very kind mention and thoughts. And everyone, have a great Monday. Make the rest of your week a masterpiece. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Is it just me? I guess I could leave now, huh? That's just me. Hi, Mark. See you later, guys.